wacky world of MultimediaJay.
Today, I'm getting all the chores done. Tomorrow, I'm getting all the shopping done. That should set me up really well for what's probably going to be a really busy week. Probably a week's worth of volume in just 4 days. I'll bet it's a mess. So let's be ready for that mess, and hope that we have a pleasant surprise instead of a nasty surprise. First order of business. This little Christmas stocking left over from Christmas, which is what I got all the candy in this year, says J. Basically, it's an object lesson in why you shouldn't try to decorate these things with permanent markers, because if you back off and you look at it from the right angle, some people might think it says sex, and just the marker got skippy and stuff like that. Number one, it'd be nice if you pulled your head out of the gutter. And number two, this is why you don't decorate Christmas stockings with permanent markers. Well, the folks tried anyways. They had cutesy little stockings for everybody. We got some jokes, or there was a joke going around, Christmas is the only holiday where you eat candy out of a sock. Right. Now that that's out of the way, obligatory monolith cut. It's a little on the chilly side in here because I'm being a cheap ass and shutting off the heat while the dryer's going. Might not be the smartest of ideas. But anyways, 2016 did not end with my frustrations. It ended with the frustrations of a certain Mariah Carey, whose little lip sync fiasco has gone viral. Yeah, I talked about that in the latest podcast, but alright. So, we know that for some weird, ridiculous reason, if I can say anything correctly today, I'm zonked out from being up too late last night. Actually, I was up late more to get WWMJ going, to have something ready for you folks in the morning after it finished uploading, as opposed to ringing in the new year, but that's another discussion entirely. But anyways, we know for a fact that this machine will work over here, but it won't work over there. I'm really curious as to why. We also know that the power button in this thing is a piece of crap. I do remember there were instances earlier where it took 2 or 3 tries to get the thing to start. Got up to 7 or 8 last night. Maybe, the button's just dead. I mean, this was my main system for years, and I turned it on and off with the button for years. So, yeah, mechanical wear and tear. So basically, since for some strange reason, everything works over here, but not closer to the actual setup, I'm just going to bust out the spaghetti cable and just drape it over the furniture and everything to plug it into the network, instead of moving some of those power line adapters to have some network over here, or use a laptop as a wireless bridge. Let's toy around with this and see if we can get it working. And then perhaps see if we can figure out why it has such the problems that it has. It could just be that we need some alcohol and solder on some of the little itty-bitty connectors that the power switch runs off of. Bottom line, it's not important that this machine be 100% anytime soon, as I actually have some more pertinent curiosities, and I am wondering if I can squeeze in another great sift run tomorrow when I head out to do the shopping that I've got planned. Power supply is good. I was thinking for a second there I might have accidentally got switched over to 240 volt as I was mounting this thing in the case. Apparently that's not the case. Ha 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 ha. That doesn't leave very much left in terms of this board, in terms of what's wrong with it. I don't like this design though. It doesn't fit the case very well. Too easy to bend the thing when you're plugging in stuff. However, the big thing here is that this Phenom 2 has seen better days, and I've basically been running it into the ground. Maybe I finally killed it off. We're done. This whole thing is coming out. This board looks nice, but it'd be nice if it worked. It's a bit of a complicated story about all of this and what's gone down in the last 48 hours or so, but it'll suffice to say that I have been reading the reviews of this board on Newegg, and it's a flip of a coin as to whether the board works or whether the board works with the processor that they want to use. So I think this will be my first and last time buying a motherboard specifically to breathe new life into an aging processor like that Phenom 2 1090T. I think once the Phenom comes out, it's finished. It's already had problems with bent pins before, and I think this is gonna be it for this chip. I really don't think I'm going to get it to go in any more motherboards, and it's not really all that efficient anyways. I mean, circa 2010 and things like that, 125 watt TDP. It's not exactly what I'd call first-class hardware here. So, I was nervous, however. This is a nice-looking board, but glitz and glimmer doesn't replace actual substance and service. I was a bit nervous, though, because it's an MSI. Because you've probably heard me tell this story before, but I went to college with a geek back in the day who was the one and only person I've ever known who made fun of my computer. Ha ha, HP! And during the summer of the geek, he tried to build a new system and it didn't work on the first try, and he was swapping parts and RMAing the Newegg and stuff. Guess what his motherboard was? MSI. I'm a little nervous about MSI as a result. Likewise with Gigabyte, after the bad luck I've had with their boards. But that's not to say that the 1090T is perfectly innocent either. I mean, I was doing some overclocking with it and things along those lines. However, one very important historical note, those of you who dig around the back catalog on this page probably know from the Jay's Junkyard fiasco back in 2010 that Tuxedo didn't work on the first try. I actually RMA'd the 1090T and the motherboard that it came with, so both the Gigabyte board and the 1090T were on combo number 2 before everything finally got working. So, yeah, I think a more modern processor is in order here, and I should look for Newegg Super Combo minus the whole Super Combo part of it. Maybe try another combination or something to have a secondary system. It's not going to compete with Monolith. Nothing is going to compete with Monolith until the Ryzen comes out. But in terms of a reliable secondary system, I do have options. And the option I'd like to take is to not go out of my way to buy a specific board to breathe new life into an aging, dying processor like this old Phenom 2. It had a good run. We're done here. File this under dumbest reasons why motherboards get RMA'd, but I'm not normally the kind of person to run boards on boxes like this, because usually the stuff I have works on the first try. But I have gone up to the silverware drawer in the kitchen and gotten this little thing. We're going to short some pins here to show you that this is actually unreliable even when you're trying to jump start it with a piece of metal. So the last two pins in the top row on JFP1 are what you're supposed to short in order to get this thing started. Let's do that. Short, nothing. Short, there we go. See, even when you're shorting pins, it's unreliable. It takes a couple of tries. Now, let's wipe that off a bit, and let's get this thing to shut off via shorting. Now we got the 5-second rule to contend with. 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no dice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no dice. Let's try again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See what I mean? 2, 3, 4. There we go. Finally, it shut off. The dumbest reason in the world for a board to get RMA'd. I'm tempted to just, stick a soldering iron under there. It's unbelievable. So the unreliable connection to the power switch pins basically kills the reliability of the board. It takes several tries, even when you're shorting pins, to get the thing to turn on. That time it didn't. And of course, when you're trying to turn it off, it's unreliable. That time it worked on the first try both times. Would it be that I'd be so lucky that blah 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 blah? Electronics, gotta love it. So tempted to go in there with a soldering iron. You tell me, fellas, any of these look like cold solder joints to you? If this wasn't a brand new board, I would totally go in there with a soldering iron for something like this. This is nuts. Oh brother, one last hope for humanity, folks. 91% isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab. Really shouldn't have to do this with brand new electronics like this, but let's clean those pins, just for the heck of it, with the power disconnected. It'd be hilarious if this motherboard was like an old Nintendo game. Power is back on. Not the most glamorous thing in the world. I can only clean one side. Nope. momentary contact does not do it. 2, 3. Power's on. Yep, power's on. 4. 5. Yeah, 5. There it goes on try number 5. So what's the secret? You have to hit the stuff closer to the base. Maybe the pins are a little bent. Let's do 5-second roll right on the base. 3, 4. Nope. It's just unreliable. Just totally unreliable. 3, 4, 5. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nada. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what? Hit the switch. This right here is the dumbest reason in the world for a motherboard to get RMA'd. And that's with freshly cleaned pins, too. Not that there would be any oxidation on those things fresh out of the box anyways, but dumbest reason ever to RMA a motherboard. Unreliable piece of crap. It would also appear that I was burned by a depleted supply chain at Newegg right before Christmas, because now that we're past the holiday humbug season, look at all these boards. I had very few SKUs that were available back when I bought this. The rest were all out of stock. It looks like Newegg's replenished their inventory now that Christmas is over. Woohoo! Also interesting to note, I have it set so show me everything that's compatible with the Phenom 2, and one of them is the Asus Sabertooth of 8350 Sabertooth fame. Oh man, 8350 Sabertooth. I couldn't get away from that combination a few years ago. That was the AMD solution in 2013, let me tell you. Still almost 200 though. I think that's a bit rich for a secondary system. 2013 called, they want their motherboard back. But I do have options. Just gotta find one where I can potentially plug in that old Sound Blaster card. Maybe I should give up on sound cards. You know, there's USB sound processors out there nowadays that keep everything digital until it's out of the computer. Maybe it's time I took a look at one of those, instead of trying to find something that'll work with an old X5 from 10 plus years ago. Well, it's nice to know I have options, including if I want to be nuts enough to try using the Phenom 2 one more time. Yeah, I think I'm nuts enough to pursue some pipe dreams like that. Let's get this thing disassembled. However, if the pins are to be preserved properly, I should put the processor in another board until the next one I want to try comes in. Which means wherever it landed when I tossed it out of the way the other day, the Gigabyte board has one last use. For those of you doubters doubting the efficacy of the dot method, it does seem to be missing a bit on the side though. Or it could be because of, taking this off and things like that. But let's get this cleaned up and see if that processor will come out with its bent pins extraordinaire. All done. This thing can go back in the anti-static bag shortly. And the Gigabyte board has a new lease on life as a chip store and pin bend prevention something. Prevent pins from getting bender, whatever. This processor is a trooper. It came out easier than it went in. Despite its bent pin issues in the past, it came out easier than it went in, and it just drops right in still. I think this thing still has some life left in it yet. Call me certifiably nuts, but this thing is a trooper of a processor, let me tell you. No wonder these things are selling all over the place on the second-hand market for what they go for these days. Nice. Saves the Gigabyte board from the scrap heap for at least one more round. To store this thing, I think I want to give this another shot. Maybe with an Asus board that's backward compatible with a 1090Ti. That I could maybe upgrade to like an 8350 when those get dirt cheap after the Ryzen comes out. Yeah, right. AMD's just gonna discontinue everything. Come on. Who are we kidding? There we go. Original backplate has been reattached for those pansies out there that actually still use stock coolers. Right, I don't want this to take up the bulk of the time tonight, so back in the bag it goes, and back to Newegg it goes. What a dumb reason to RMA a motherboard. Seriously. Let's get an Asus and watch it work on the first try. Now for what I'm really curious about. Fossil's potential as a joke system. Let's take the motherboard from Midnots and get it to fit inside this thing, if that's even possible. First order of business is to take the power supply formerly of the Silver Bullet and see if this fan can be the exhaust fan for the entire system. I'm sure it can, and it's mountable. Just want to see if there's clearance enough that this thing can be cooling the processor in the 2005 system if we mount that sucker in here. Time to take the thing half apart again, because I know it comes apart quite a bit in order to get everything to fit. Owned by the proprietary nonsense in this case. That's an intake fan. And that screw doesn't go in far enough to hold it in place. But here's what we're looking at here. The only way for this to work with ATX standard parts is to use vacuum cooling. I'm not looking forward to this. Basically, the way it would work is, underneath the power supply, the processor's under the power supply, the fan's blowing down on the processor and the heat is dissipating out the side, but because this thing is sucking air in and blowing it out the back, it creates a vacuum, so the heat has to find its way around, in and out that way. But it will create a vacuum to have some semblance of airflow, but we might want to keep a very close eye on processor temps on this old 10-year-old piece of junk. Okay, now, how much duct tape are we going to need to make those not-so-conducting for Midnots' motherboard? Every so often in life, you come across something that just works, and you're appalled that it works in the first place. Somehow, there is just enough space for everything to fit in here. Also, this board is ATX, or this case supports ATX, including the little stabilizer peg down there. Now I know that the clock battery in this motherboard is dead, but 3, 2, 1. What the heck? It lives! There's no storage in it yet, but let's put the lid on it and go into the BIOS and see how hot it gets. So I took the liberty. It's pretty quiet. Ooh, checksum error. That couldn't possibly be because of the dead battery, right? Please, let me know the setup. Go to PC health status, ASAP. It's a quiet system. So, there's next to no cooling. The power supply is doing all the cooling. Just like on the last HP. It's actually quite a bit of air. Focus. There actually is a bit of air though, but we have to use vacuum cooling. That's what sucks. Hey, January 2005, flicker vision. No, don't quit without saving. I think we tab over. No, we don't tab over. How do we get over? Here's the right arrow keys, you idiot. Okay, I need to see hardware monitor. What's the temp? CPU flicker vision. The CPU target temperature is 72 degrees, and it's sitting at 20 with barely any cooling. And the stock cooler and 10-year-old spread method thermal compound. Oh, brother. Well, now, I think we have ourselves a computer here. I was reminded of the shop instructor back in my electronics days. Is it a computer yet? Well, guess what? Now it is a computer. There's a couple of things that don't work, though. We're going to have to do some very careful cutting. Gotta do some very careful cutting. That's supposed to be the power light, and it's actually functioning as a hard drive light right now. So we gotta do some very careful cutting in order for that to work again. So nothing's gonna work right because the clock battery's dead. We'll take the one from Tuxedo's old board. That works. Couldn't quite swap out the faceplate though, so it's gonna have to say that it's DVD capable. But Fossil, as a joke system, works with an old Athlon 64, and it takes ATX standard boards. We just gotta be, oh, there it is, disk boot failure. So it works. Cool. There's some potential for this thing. Let's lock it up for the night. So something came out working out of this whole deal. Well, as I figured, a little cook test proved that, yeah, we probably should go shopping for a low-power processor instead of trying to squeeze an old main system in here, because even the single-core 2005 system is running a little hot. The max temperature, and it's making noise as a result, the max temperature is 72. This thing's at 38, without even doing anything. Probably get notably higher if we actually ran it full blast. And now the CPU fans up to around 4,000 RPMs because it's a little tiny stock cooler piece of junk. And not good. The lack of airflow pretty much means that what we have here is a nice little proof of concept that these joke systems can indeed work. But they'd be a lot better served if we went shopping for a low power processor that wouldn't generate anywhere near as much heat. That way, the lack of cooling wouldn't create such an issue. Also, of course, the proprietary mount. This thing will focus back up again. Wow, is the monitor messing with it that much? Keyboard, there we go. Also, the lack of the proprietary nature of this case, the fact that the fan is out here and having to cool through vacuum cooling instead, which is pseudo-passive anyways. Okay, we can shut the monitor off. Where's the switch? There. Now, the fact that we're stuck with vacuum cooling is half the problem. All we can do is blow air out this way, because the way power supplies work is, yeah, the fan is an intake, but it blows over a baffle, so it's passively coming out the back. It's not being actively forced out, so basically the wind pressure is lousy. Plus, it would make a heck of a lot more sense if this could spin the other way and have just whoosh, suck air right off the CPU. Probably be a heck of a lot more effective that way, and that's how my old Pavilion ran things. That's going to require a drill that can drill through cold rolled steel, though. I have to get a drill kit because this only fits this way. To get it to go the other way would mean this screw would come up here, that would go down there. We'd be drilling in addition to all the grinding that's already gone on. And I don't have any drill bits for the Dremel I just picked up, so I don't think there's anything that can drill with those things. I think it's for grinding and sanding only. So we're going to have to get some kind of small drill kit in order to work with this. And something to secure it so it doesn't spin around and chop my hand off or anything like that. So it is possible to get this working, though. It is technically possible to get the system working if I put a low-power processor in here instead of a former main system that is usually run in a much larger case. But as a proof of concept, it's cool to see this working, and nice to see that it still works, and it still worked on the first try. So maybe we can run some Linux on the Silver Bullet or something like that, or put it back in the 2005 system thing as well. But we have options, and that's really what counts here. There, give that thing a rest. So we have options, and this joke system thing has potential. We just got to engineer the living daylights out of it in order for the thing to not barbecue itself. That means probably finding a way to spin the power supply around, or have one that goes the other way if one exists, or getting a drill kit so that the power supply can be mounted the correct way, and the proprietary nonsense that HP kind of socked us with here can be undone after all these years for this late 90s computer case. Otherwise, it's great. Supports full-size ATX right out of the box. Freudian slip. Gives us something to work with. Well now, rest in peace, Tuxedo, for now, and rise Fossil, at least for now, until we move this 2005 stuff into something else. We still have to gut the Silver Bullet too, but we'll save that for another day. This is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.